Well, thank you everyone for joining today's panel discussion on utilizing data to add value across the business, increasing senior level buy-in. Thank you very much for joining Alec and Richard to today's panel. I think the first thing we should do is get you both introduced to the attendees, and then we can start with some questions, some topics to discuss, and obviously I'll be monitoring the chat and Q&A section to ensure we're addressing the questions coming from the audience.
Good.
Alec, why don't you get started?
Yeah, okay, so hello everyone. I'm the head of data science at BuyIn, which is basically the largest premium and luxury retail department store and also online store in the German-speaking region of Europe, and currently expanding beyond the German-speaking region of Europe.
Okay, thank you. Richard.
Hey, Miroslav made it. Yeah, sorry, my name is Richard Henderson. I'm the EMEA Technical Director for Tiger Graph. So we sell a graph database, which is the new big thing in high-speed data analytics. And so I'm very pleased to be here.
Awesome. Miroslav, thank you for joining.
Hello, everyone.
We've gone through a session of introductions, so why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me here. And well, I'm Miroslav, for shorter version is Umlauf, and I have been working already 11 years for Avast Software, the antivirus company, or the online security company, and now I'm in the role of the Chief Data Officer. So I deal with our data challenges, which are coming from our massive growth.
Of course. Okay. So why don't we get started with one of the topics that I know everyone is really interested to hear about: strategies across industries and different types of business models. And the question is really around, how have your business models and data strategy changed in the past few years with regards to digital transformation, customer experience, and where do you see this transforming even further in the future?
That is a really big question, isn't it? Let me go for. I can talk a little bit about this. I think Alec's probably got a better view on this as far as he's concerned, particularly customer experience, which of course will be dear to his heart. I think, in the more general sense, I think that in the 2000 sort of the first part of the last few years. Everything was very much around BI, very much about analyzing the data that we already had. So we'd finally got the data in one place. We'd finally got Hadoop and big data. Big data had happened. And so the idea was to actually start getting some value out of that and to understand it. But equally, not much had changed. It was really just more of the same, just in one place. I think the thing that I'm seeing very much and hoping to exploit from a product point of view is that this idea of digitalization is starting to move into the business in a much more significant way, in that they're now looking at how they can use data to drive business performance as well as influence their products and their external face, as it were. And so I think that's quite interesting, is watching that start to come into companies so that people are actually starting to use that as a way of looking at themselves. So it's almost like a reflective thing, rather than in the past it was more about looking outward, at looking at our customers, looking at our suppliers, looking at all of the external aspects. I think that's probably, I would say, the biggest change I've seen as far as this is concerned. And with respect to CX, I think this rather American idea, which actually I think is quite a good one, is that you start to see everybody as a customer in some respect. So it's not just literally the people who buy your product, but also the people who have to deal with all of your processes internally as well. And that has kind of turned things around and allowed us to use the same tools in a much more significant way to decide, are we actually serving ourselves as well as we'd like to, let alone how we're serving our customers as well as we'd like to. And I think that's quite a deep movement, and we're seeing quite a lot of that.
Fantastic.
So I think I can follow on Richard's thought on seeing everyone as a customer, because of course, I mean, we are in the retail business. We are nowadays we are extremely customer centristic, and basically this big buzzword customer centricity is one of our main strategic pillars since a couple of years. But well, not only externally we see our data science services as customer-centric services, but also internally. So both for our external clients and for our internal clients, we want to provide the best user experience, basically. And well, Bräuninger is a company. It's now 140 years old, and so coming from our long history into the current times where we are becoming a data-driven company is quite a huge change process, basically. Because in the past we were, well, I would say the cliche company with many data silos and everybody sitting on his or her data, and nobody exchanging the data between business units, basically. And so it took a big strategic initiative at Bräuninger in order to get basically a change of the mindset and to get the people who owned the data to provide it to a big centralized, however you want to call it, data pool, data warehouse, data whatever, and to provide the data to everybody. And now that this is there, we as data science can basically start using that data to help our customers having the best experience we possibly can provide. So that's so far about Bräuninger.
Well, and in our case, if I may briefly comment, we have been only digital company since the very outset. So we only had digital relationship with our users and customers. But there was one very important change in the data strategy driven by the changes around us, the regulations, and also driven by, let's say, the hunger for data in business. So people want to use more data, more tools. This data democracy approach is very pervasive, and I agree with that. But suddenly, being exposed to all the regulations, we really needed to implement more offensive part of our data strategy, more offensive tactics, so that we are able to prevent some misuse of data or breaches. So this is the major change we have noticed in recent years.
Okay, great. Well, some very different point of views and some commonalities. So as a follow-up question, I think, it's one aspect is that I also see when we speak to customers and we speak to IT, and they understand the value of, we need more data, we need better technology, we need machine learning, we need data scientists. But then when it comes to getting leadership buy-in and actually seeing projects being funded and sponsored by C-level executives, that's a different story altogether. So how do you see that within your organizations as far as them hiring C-level talent that understand the value of digitalization and modernization?
So
if I start, well, as I said in the beginning, we have been very digital only.
Yes.
So it's right now I'm actually I have learned how to educate our C-level about also the defensive strategies, because there was always a clear path how to use data, not just for customer experience, but our product is all about security. So how to detect threats, how to build better products through this data. So, but for me, it was quite challenging to convince the broad C-level about the importance of, let's say, having data governance and having data stewardship in place. And yes, we want to have self-service, but it doesn't mean that everything is for everyone. And what helped me then was getting the board level support, and it's not 1 week exercise. It was the change in the board which suddenly gave me the room to be with all C-levels and having data on our weekly agenda.
Great. What about Alec? You mentioned that Bräuninger being a 140-year-old company, how has that change in mindset been able to transform over the past few years?
Well, in fact, when I entered Bräuninger, the bet was already made, so I didn't have to put much effort into convincing people of the value of data and of machine learning and of the consistent use of PI tools and so forth. Luckily, I must say, because I know that it's quite a big challenge. Yet, if we want to get a data product into production, first of all, we need still to convince the executive board of the business case behind it. So it's not like, well, if you speak of data science, the scientific part is basically experimentation, and it's not like we start just experimenting and end up with a great product which we can put into production. Then it's rather that first we need to find a very concise, specific business case, convince the board that this business case will add a lot of value, and only then do we get to go to basically explore that case. And also, I must admit, also have the pressure to perform on that case, even if the experiments are initially not so promising, I'd say.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Certainly from my view, the key we're seeing is that a lot of these tools are now they're no longer restricted to CFO and financial stuff. Now that they are showing that people get advantage in, and I tend to go on an awful lot about operational use cases, but really, what does that mean? It really means that in the wider business, where traditionally they see where value is being applied, and that's either in efficiency or in more sales or in being able to do things strategically, having better view, less risk, things like that. When you can apply that to the particular work that is being done, so in retail, you have a huge logistical operation, as well as you have your sales operation, as well as you have all of the property portfolios. There's a lot of parts of the business which are very physical, and once you can apply things to show how they apply to those very concrete areas, then suddenly you find everybody's on board. And actually, the problem is how do you meet demand? It becomes the problem of hiring people then becomes being able to find people in the market who actually have the skills. And even if they have the skills, a lot of people, they're still quite young, so they don't necessarily have the domain knowledge that allows them to. I think your question is very good. It talks about how do they make business value. Getting that connection right is absolutely critical, and it's quite a challenge because the demand is there. It's not that convincing people isn't a problem. Now it's satisfying the demand that people are wanting from it.
Okay, fantastic. So I have another follow-on question to that. So which data projects are you most proud of, and what is the business of impact for those projects?
I'll go first.
So
Sure.
Okay. I did look at that, and I was busy scribbling down here. There's two projects which I think are interesting, and one of them is kind of a peripheral one, but I won't. But the one that's interesting is, so one of them was we do a lot of work for United Healthcare Group, who are absolutely gigantic, largest healthcare organization in the world, in the US, completely vertically integrated healthcare provision. So all the way, they start all the way from health insurance through to hospitals, through to doctors, prescribers, even drug research and things like that. So we did some work for them to help them with their, to ensure that they got a much better joined up customer experience. Originally, so it was originally designed just because their net promoter score, they weren't very popular in the market. And so they felt, if people are going to buy our stuff, we need to be better at this. But what they found with working with us, because we're a graph technology, we join stuff together. That's fundamentally what graph databases do. We can do it bigger, we can do it faster, we've got more analytics and AI, but the point is it's just joining information together. They've also found that the outcomes of people's treatment were getting better. People were more likely to take the drugs they were supposed to. They were more likely to call when there were problems. They were going to attend appointments when they were supposed to. So not only did it become more efficient, but effectively people were getting better faster. They were getting better outcomes from the treatment. And that was unexpected. And it's kind of nice when you can say that we have honestly saved people's lives, because they've effectively, their treatment process has been that much smoother and accelerated and better for them. So that's the key one. And the one we're doing right now, which is a new area for us, is we've been asked about a lot of ESG work, which is so a lot of eco credential stuff, but it's all about supply chain. When you buy stuff, where does it come from? Who processed it? What are the steps? How do I know that this is what I think it is? And that's become, there's a lot of regulation that's appeared, particularly in the EU, but also in the States, where they're saying your stuff has to be correct. It has to be certified. Wood has to come from places where they're not burning down the rainforest to get it. There cannot be modern slavery act has to be in place so that you know that the people who are working on it are paid fairly and things like that. And we're seeing we can provide such a clean, fast way of doing that, so that individual customers in principle can pick up a bag of coffee and we'll be able to tell which farm it was picked on, how it was transferred, all of the information, how much, whether the chemical analyses show that it doesn't have any arsenic or any heavy metals in it and stuff like that. Being able to democratize that so it's not just a regulatory thing, but it becomes a normal part of doing business without costing people too much. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential there. I'm kind of hoping that that's going to make the world a better place, if I dare say it, in a small way. But that's, I don't know, that gets me out of bed in the morning. I like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's truly impressive impact. And I don't have anything like this. Really like this use case. There are things we are proud of. So definitely our ability, and we use, of course, a lot of machine learning because of tons of data about threats. So the detection time from the data to detect a new threat, that it's less than 12 hours right now. So many things are happening near real time or in real time. This is what we are proud of as a company, and maybe more business user-friendly use case we are proud of, because what we had in the past, a lot of data cubes, and you may be familiar with self-service BI tools. So it on one moment it helps, then suddenly there is too much of them, and you don't have unlimited amount of analysts and people who would analyze all the data and information available. So this is the use case, and we were trying to find a product for that. And then at the end of the day, we did it ourselves with our machine learning team. And we created something like an artificial analyst, which is a machine learning algorithm which reads all the data cubes, and based on the usage, how people use those data cubes, so how analysts, it generates a daily digest of things, like, and you receive an email or Slack message, and it says, hey, you should look at this today because it can become a problem in 3 days later, because with our revenue volumes, people change the sensitivity. So $10,000 today is not as much as it used to be 5 years ago, but it's still money. It still could be a problem. So this is the second project, like to help the analysts to focus.
Nice, very nice. What about you, Alec?
So the project or products I'm super proud of. While it's not in the benefit of the whole world, it's rather in the benefit of our back office, I would say, is that we are currently putting all the purchasing processes on data-driven legs, basically. So till recently, our purchase department has basically done everything by hand. So they had their expert knowledge and had their Excel sheets and their ERP planning front end, where they basically had a top-down planning and a bottom-up planning done by hand, and then they try to fit everything together in order to purchase the goods that we then sell through our stores. And then you had some in-season management where you switched goods between stores or sent goods back to the producers or ordered new products from the producers. End of season, you had some markdown algorithms, and we basically are integrating all of that into a optimized system, basically, where we have a data-driven demand forecast, and based on this demand forecast, basically all the articles are distributed around our shops. The purchasing managers will only have to make strategic decisions and not so many hands-on, I will buy 5,000 black t-shirts decisions, but rather next season will be blue, the new fancy color, and now please, dear algorithm, give us the numbers what we need to order. And there will be much less in-season management because the forecast will forecast demand, and then we know basically what good will be ordered in what shop.
Great. That's a nice one, yes. And it leads into my next question. So do you currently struggle with multiple versions of the truth? And, you know, as you just said, you know, everyone was doing it slightly different and with different tools, with different ways on how they were looking at it. And then everybody rushes back to solve the problems and everybody has a different answer. How 60-degree picture across all of
So I'm kind of hoping everybody is struggling because we sell a product to help them with that. So if you struggle this, that would be really good for me.
Well, this is the topic. I don't think that multiple versions of truth are bad thing, but I think what is more important is to be aware that there can be multiple perspectives on, I don't know, how to count users or measure satisfaction or the usage of the product. But yes, there needs to be something what I call authoritative data set or authoritative set of reports, which makes sure that the decisions at the top level are made on consistent set of information and explain to people that yes, they can arrive to different conclusions, and it's their responsibility to reconcile it with this authoritative version. I think trying to achieve only single version of truth is it could be also limiting, because it doesn't mean that what I define today as the definition of the customer is to be here forever. So I think it's the flexibility also plays here the role, but authoritative data, this is how we call it. There is some, it needs to be in place.
I like the term authoritative data.
Me too. I've never heard it before.
But that's exactly what's yeah. I've never heard it before. I never used it before. But that's exactly also what's happening at Bräuninger. And I count on installing that term now in our company.
Yes, same here.
I do not know from where I have it. Well, I read a lot, but yes, we started using this term a couple of maybe last year, because there were still these discussions. Okay, and well, who has true, or what is better truth, and then we arrived to the point. Okay, there needs to be an authority. So then we call it. But I am sure I read it somewhere.
Okay, great. So I've just looked at the questions again, and so far no one from the audience has asked anything. So maybe a question that I have, and when we're looking at what we call the big data landscape, we're seeing all sorts of different possibilities of what companies and our customers can choose from depending on what they're trying to accomplish. So one topic, since databases as having their kind of niche fit and where they add the most value.
Okay, I think I can get that one. So I think they were quite niche. I think they're becoming less niche. I think the places where the reason that they were originally quite niche was that first of all, they were very academic. They were very complicated. They couldn't handle the data that people are used to using. It was very different worlds, and so as a result, it made it rather difficult to see how to even apply them, even if you did have a use case for them. We hopefully have solved a lot of those problems. So in that we can scale big enough to handle most data sets. We can do the analytics that people want to do, so they can actually really do analytics on the graph. And also the ease of use, it's easy to interface with existing data science and things like that. Plus, of course, people have started to understand what they're useful for. So it used to be just social networking was the only thing people used it for, whereas now we're using it for a lot of different analytic use cases. And so that's interesting from the data science point of view, and that's slowly coming up. But the place where and this is a personal viewpoint, because I'm not necessarily here just to sell my product, is that what I'm always interested in is fast data and operational data. I'm interested, and we talked earlier about it, being able to provide value, not just in a report, but where people in the actual, the way the business actually works in the real world. And I see that graph is a really good way of modeling the world, because when you create a graph database, it looks like the world. It's things with links between them. And the world is largely things with links between them. And so because there is a very direct model between the world and the database, it suddenly makes things an awful lot easier. And so something that before was almost impossible and really difficult and rather strange and academic, now people are going, actually, this is a better way of working. And the secret to our going fast is simply because we model things very directly and easily, which means that there is very little translation happening. And so it fundamentally means it goes faster, it's more efficient. But what it also allows us to do is to handle these very difficult cases which couldn't be done in previous data technologies, such as if car breaks because a part breaks in the car, show me everything, where does that part come from all the way back to when the supplier made that part in the first place. And we're seeing 26, 27, 28 separate steps might have been involved in that process. Any one of those steps might have been the one where it went wrong, which caused the problem. You can't do that with relational databases because they're not designed to do that. They're extremely good at what they do. But when it comes to this modeling the world, where you have this arbitrary depth of data, that's where graph databases, I think, are very strong. And if you can then apply the sort of analytic techniques that you want, where you're looking for patterns in that data, which is what machine learning is all about, so you're trying to learn it. If you can give it a picture that looks like the real world, then it means that you end up with really good results. And so our fraud results are 10 to 20% better than you would get with any other technology. We are able to do things very quickly as far as finding what's the next best action or the next best recommendation engines are classically built on graph databases. So Netflix is based on a graph database. So that, I think those kinds of capabilities are now starting to be people are expecting those capabilities now. And it's really good for us, of course, because we're trying to sell into that market. But fundamentally, I think it is actually allowing people to ask questions that they've kind of given up trying to ask, which are things like, exactly where are we right now? Show me everything, and let me just get at the data. Let me find that data. Let me find all the things around the data. And so they're starting to explore the data in a very dynamic way. And this is exactly the sort of thing that I enjoy presenting. Please see my recording if you want to. I'm doing it for supply chain. But when you're modeling the real world, we talk about digital twin in manufacturing. I feel that we're going to end up with digital twins everywhere, wherever we're interacting with the world. And I think graph databases are the perfect technology to make that happen. So I don't know, it's exciting for me. But thank you for asking the question.
Very exciting. Thank you. So Alec, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in understanding, how are you planning on staying ahead of your competition? So you've mentioned, Breuninger has existed for 140 years. How are you ensuring Breuninger is still around in 140 years time from now and being a top contender in the region or possibly globally?
So basically, well, I say it's a mixture of technology and people. So, I mean, you don't just need the best technology out there in order to stay ahead, but you also need good people to make use of the technology. And if I look at the data-related people at Breuninger, I'm pretty proud in being able to say that all of them know their job very well, and if they do not know it too well, then no, they know it extremely well. And the little things they do not know well, basically they're able to collaborate closely with other people in order to get the needed help there. So it's one of the, I think, most important things is not only being able to work with the data, but also to work with the people.
You're muted.
I just saw him on mute. Great answer. Thank you, Alec. Okay, so Radu gave us a 2 minutes warning. There's still no questions from the audience. So Miroslav, I didn't ask you a question. Do you have anything that you'd like to end the session with?
Well, I will probably follow on what Alec just mentioned, that it's about the people. And for us, the major challenge, and I see it because I'm fortunate that I was invited by local universities to participate on a creation of data literacy programs, that it's becoming a serious topic also for universities. And they are not thinking about it in just the technology skills, like how to write SQL query, how to install a tool, but really about mindset, how to teach people who are in legal roles, like lawyers or people in other roles which have nothing to do with mathematics, but they need to be able to interpret the data. And you need essentially everyone in the company to be able to interpret information and have some critical thinking about it. So that's why I'm heavily invested into education, not just within the company, but also like the youngsters and also people who are older than I am, because I think they still have also opportunity to utilize or benefit from what the digital technologies and data offer to us. So this is for, I think, the technologies, and I like what Richard mentioned about the graph databases. It's really opening new door and making originally academic and very cumbersome ways how to get inside. It makes that faster. So now we need people to be able to implement it, use it, and
Great.
so people.
People. Great. I love that, people. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. And, I wish you a great rest of your day. I hope this was informative for the audience. And with that, we're going to wrap up. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Pleasure to meet you.